What's up, everybody? Welcome to the How to Lead podcast, a conversation designed to help you develop yourself and those around you. Clay, today, listen, I saw that you sent over this topic and it was like, I'm intrigued, okay, that you want to talk about how we can stop caring what other people think about you. Having teenagers at home, this is certainly a conversation we have a lot. I don't know if that's the same in your house. I find myself sometimes trying to give my boys some advice on how to think about social status. And I'm like, there's a part of me that just says, forget them all. It doesn't matter. You do you. And then there's a part of me that's like, yeah, sometimes it matters, And so this is a tough topic to talk about, right? Do you feel that tension?
Yeah, for sure. And to your point, having different, having multiple kids helps you see it, because I've got a couple of kids that I'm like, I wish you cared a little more what other people think of you. Like, let's talk about how to be kind to someone. Let's talk about how to address an adult, right? But then there's others that I'm like, no, this one's going to be for you. You're going to need to pay attention to this. So I would say this might not be for everybody. This is certainly for me. My tendency is to care too much what people think. But I do want to balance it with what you're also kind of the caution that you're making, or the question that you're bringing up. The biggest decisions about your career are going to be made when you're not in the room.
That's so good.
And so to not care what people think about you is a little irresponsible and a little incongruent with the way the world actually works, right?
That's
because
right.
There is going to come a day where people are going to make a decision about your career. You're not going to be there, and what they actually think about you is going to be the main factor in how they're going to make that decision.
That's
so
right.
There is an element where this isn't just a screw everybody, I'm going to do me, and I don't care what anybody else says or thinks about me. It's certainly not that. I just know if there is one way that I've grown as a person throughout my professional journey, it's learning how to not worry so much about what other people think about me. I've just discovered, unfortunately, over the last 10, 15 years, you can't lead well if you're constantly worried about what other people think.
That's right. So maybe the litmus test here is, if right now you're already going, this is not my problem, right? Everybody loves me. They all think greatly about me. You probably need this episode. This is a little more
Maybe
like
so.
you said with the kids that were like, I wish you thought about it more. And also, if you're sitting there and you just feel like you clicked on this episode going, yes, this is my issue, right? I am a people pleaser and everything that goes along with that that's negative, then I think this is definitely going to be helpful, because if we cross that line, and that line is going to be different for everybody, I think we would agree there. If you cross that line, it moves from being personally responsible, thinking about your personal brand, into obsessing over it, and it becomes exhausting, right? To just think about this all the time, because then you're not even showing up as like you, because you're just trying to calculate everything, and it just comes across, you'll just come across so inauthentic, right? Have you seen that in your experience?
For sure. Yeah. So let me try to specifically say who this is for.
Yeah.
This is for leaders who spend way too much time or energy managing others' perception of you. This is for a leader who's overthinking how they're coming across constantly.
That's good. Yeah.
This is for a leader who's over-apologizing for decisions, or who's under-leading because they're afraid of criticism. Of course, the desire to be liked is natural. We all want approval, right? But when that desire, when it starts driving your decisions, it will derail your leadership. You end up leading for applause instead of impact. You avoid having hard conversations. You soften clear messages. You play small so you don't ruffle any feathers. And meanwhile, the people that you're leading, or the people, your bosses or your colleagues, whether or not you're specifically managing them, they're craving clarity. They're craving direction and courage, and you're withholding it because you're caught up in people pleasing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the big idea is you don't need everybody to like you. You don't.
Yeah.
But you've got to like who you're becoming. And that's even more important. And learning to lead and coach from the seat you're in, it starts with getting free from the approval trap.
That's good. Okay, so again, why this matters? I think there's you have some very insightful thoughts here on this, because if you have crossed that line where now it's taking from you more than it's giving to you, what would be some things that maybe, a leader needs to hear about this, right? No, the first one is that your team can probably sense this, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. If you want to put this under the category of what is this actually costing you? Why does this matter so deeply?
Yeah.
What's really at stake? Yeah, if you're caught up in that approval trap, if you're caught up in that people pleasing endless machine, right? Your team can certainly feel it. They know when you're hesitant. They sense when you're leading for approval and not purpose, right? They sense when you're trying to gain consensus. There are moments when you've got to gain consensus. But if you're constantly trying to gain consensus as opposed to going, no, here's where we ought to be going because this is who we're trying to become, your team will know it. They know it when you're sacrificing that. And ultimately it creates confusion, frustration, because uncertain leaders create uncertain teams, right?
Yeah. You got to own your impact on this, right? If you're always chasing validation, you've got to be able to do that.
Can I give you two more, Adam? Sorry.
Yes, please.
I brought two more. Not only can your team feel it, you'll lose yourself. I think this is what I'm most concerned for leaders about, is that maybe for some of you, you've been leading this way, you've been working this way for so long, you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And learning how to, again, it's not about everyone liking you. It's about liking who you're becoming.
That's so good.
Maybe if you found yourself losing yourself and your leadership voice, then maybe this podcast is for you. Learning how to lead authentically as opposed to editing yourself for approval. And then thirdly, I just think we would all agree the world needs more bold leaders. The world needs more bold and clear leaders than ever, I would say.
Yep.
And so whether you're in charge of a team or whether you're just on a team, teams, organizations, communities, we're all starving for people who will speak truth and love, who lead with conviction, and then who don't apologize for what genuinely matters. Now, they might apologize for a way that they've said it that maybe caused some damage, but they are willing to know, no, here's who they're willing to say, we know who we're trying to become, we know where we're headed, and we're not just chasing validation of others.
That's awesome. Well, good. We're going to give some people permission to stop caring so much.
Yes.
Hopefully we're going to give people some clarity and some courage. Hopefully we'll convict a few people to start caring a little bit more, right? To stay in that safe zone here where this is a healthy perspective and desire to want to try to maintain your good personal brand and really obtain some of the benefits that come from having status in an organization, but all in the right way. So you want to just jump into like 3 ways to be able to do this. And I love this first one here, because it does bring about this. This is maybe in that category, and I know we do some episodes on this, of tension to manage rather than problem to solve. You know, we're going to have some days where we're doing this well and some days not. But I think this first principle here gets into this. So we need to first and foremost know whose opinion actually matters.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Well, again, it's not about saying, okay, well, then screw everybody. I'm going to do me. I'm going to figure out what I'm, where I'm headed, and I'm just going to go there. And if people are on the bus, they are. If they're not, they're not. No. There are opinions that matter, right? Not all opinions are created equally, though. So you've got to decide whose feedback you're willing to receive. You've got to decide whose vote you do actually need. And let me just tell you, on the short list of people that you need, your boss is one of them, right? So learning how to be, what was Allison Fergali's book, How to Be a Likable Badass?
Yeah.
Right?
Such a great title.
That is such a great title. There is a short list of people that do need to not just enjoy you, but they need to feel like they can trust you, right? And they need to like you.
Yeah.
And knowing who's on that list, your boss certainly is, some of the teammates that you work with regularly, and then obviously some of your most crucial clients, particularly if it aligns with what you're really trying to do and where you're trying to head. Yeah, their opinion matters. Their opinion of you really does matter.
Yeah. Let me talk real quickly to those who have been working, let's put them like 15, 20, 25 years. You are probably at the stage of your career where the opinions that matter the most are your peers, because that advice was given to me and to a group of young leaders. Current president of one of our clients, a large global manufacturing organization, and he said that that moment when he realized now the most important people that will control how high my career goes are now my peers was a huge moment. And recognizing, he kind of stumbled into that of just going, I'm so grateful I built these great peer relationships throughout my entire career, because now my peers are going to have a say in who's going to become the C-suite and are they willing to follow me. And I thought that was really insightful. Right. And it's really, really good to keep in mind here about whose opinions actually matters, because I think what we're saying, Clay, is it may change as you progress in your career, right?
Yeah, and we've all had that situation where you're talking to a friend, or maybe you're coaching someone, or just having a conversation of advice where somebody's frustrated because they feel like I should be in charge of the team and the boss is just not doing it, or they passed me over a few times, right? The key we've got to learn, I think, about our peers, Adam, is that if the boss put you in charge, would the peers revolt? Right?
Yeah,
would the peers go, there's no way I'm working for that Yahoo, right?
Yeah,
There's no chance. I'm resigning the day that they put her in charge or put him in charge. No, you want to gain such respect and such likability from them and trust from them that if the boss did put you in charge, everybody would be like, great. Like we've been wondering what took you so long, because we respect him a lot, right? So yes, I would say at different points of your career, different people's opinion matter. And I love that concept that the older you get, the longer you're in your career, the more the feedback or the respect of your peers really does matter. But the key here is it's for the person that's going, I've got somebody out there that I've never even named. I don't even know who it is, this imaginary person or an imaginary group of people that I'm hoping like me. And it's derailing you. You'll never be the leader that you want to be if you're living for the approval of nameless, faceless people, right?
That's right.
You've got to know whose opinion actually matters.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, the second one here is, and this is going to help us with that, is to get clear on what we stand for, right? This would be, if we were all organizations, big businesses, and this would be trying to figure out our brand voice, who our ideal customer is, recognizing we cannot solve everybody's problems. We can solve this group, their problem with this product. So getting clear on what you stand for is really empowering, right? And helps quiet down some of those voices.
Yeah, I think oftentimes we think confidence comes because we're liked. But confidence really comes in knowing what your values are and then being willing to stand in those, right?
So
That's really where confidence comes from. And so learning how to define and maybe clarify your own convictions might be a really crucial step for you to go, what do I care about? What does matter to me? What is important to me? And I'm going to try to live in alignment with those. And I'm not going to be a jerk about it. I'm not going to be, I want people to enjoy being around me, but I'm not going to back down on what it is that I believe deeply in, because I'm trying to move toward something, values, convictions. I'm trying to align myself with that more than I'm trying to win an election. I'm trying to gain consensus popular vote of the people around me. So I think that does give us some work to do, because I just know for me, when I was in my 20s, I wouldn't have been able to answer that question. What do I stand for? I think when I got in my 30s, I was more clear on that. And definitely in my 40s, I feel even more clear on, no, I am more aware of what it is that I stand for, and I'm willing to align myself with those convictions, even if it means somebody gets frustrated with me or gets upset or goes, well, how dare you? And that's going to hurt my feelings. Or no, I'm way better at doing that today than I was 10 years ago.
Yeah, it becomes a filter for making decisions, and it can make those decisions easier, right? Like if you don't waffle and you just, maybe because you know what you stand for, you don't get hijacked by criticism, which is inevitable as a leader. Right. And it allows you just to filter some of that stuff, because you're like, I know that's a feature of me, is that that is one of the downsides, right, of working with me.
That's right.
Is I understand this. So, okay, so some actions here, because let's talk to the leader in their 20s that are maybe like, I stand for like getting that paycheck and showing up on time. I love Alabama Crimson Tide basketball. Like what is it, as you got that, you're sporting your fandom there. That pullover with that's where I got that idea. But anyway, so some things to do to try to figure out what you stand for. What would you say?
I went through an exercise. I was in a mentoring group years ago where you had to actually, speaking of, we're in the middle of March Madness right now as we're recording this, and they made us do like a tournament bracket of values.
Ooh.
Right, where you had to really put, 32 values, get a list of values, put them in a tournament, and then just have them play each other and then get down to the final four, right? I would do something as simple as that, right?
Yeah.
Is going, hey, let me figure out what are the values that mean the most to me that I'm willing to stand on it. It might be, you might need to do this if you're leading a team, or if you're if you have a particular role to play in creating a culture for an organization, and try to be as specific as possible, not vague, right? That if it means that we're going to be innovative, even if it means we're going to lose some, right? Even if it means there's going to be a risk, we're going to be innovative. Or we're going to have great camaraderie with each other, even if it means we're going to confront each other when things are hard or when someone, gossips about the other person.
Right.
But it's really making yourself go, what is it that I really value? And then have a final four. What are the four things that you really do stand for? And then you start, I think we're all best when you get to the end of the day and you go, did everybody like me, but did I lead in a way that proves what it is that I'm standing for, right?
Yeah.
That's when we're at our best.
Yeah, I remember getting some criticism back to an episode that we just did on like public speaking. I remember getting some criticism on my public speaking style at a place where I used to work. And I remember having gone through like that values exercise of here's what I'm trying to do when I stand in front of an audience and have an opportunity to speak. What that allowed me to do is design my messages in a way to achieve the goal that I was going after. So then when I received criticism, I would put that up against what I was trying to do and go, yeah, that makes total sense, right?
That's good.
I didn't design my talk, or I designed it to do this, and that just happened to be a flavor of something that you didn't like. And so it allowed me to just, again, tamper down a little bit, or tone down, maybe is the best way to say that, some of that criticism, and just go, yeah, this was by design. Your values, when you know what they are, then you start to design your style around it, and it helps with a lot of that. Now, hone your inner Allison Fragale, and because I think she would tell us here to lead like we mean it, right?
Yeah.
So her book, Likeable Badass, was basically saying those who are a likable badass have two characteristics. They are highly competent and very warm. Right? Very warm people to be around. So they're good at work and they're really good to work with. And I thought it's such a great read, and she had such great insights there with that from her research over there at UNC Chapel Hill. What do you think are some things she would say to this?
I think she would say you've got to determine what it is that you care most about. And you've got to be accountable to that, and don't wait for permission to start doing this. Don't wobble when somebody, gets frustrated by it. If you lose a client over this, then don't let that derail you. But at the same time, I love what you said, that there is a warmth there, that we should be warm. We should be people that, I don't know how you're going to get done what you're wanting to get done without the other people wanting to participate in it, right?
Yeah.
And so learning how to have that warmth that goes, hey, people, they enjoy the experience. They might disagree with my convictions, but they don't hate me, right?
Yeah.
They're not turned off by my ego. They don't feel less than. They don't have to be so insecure around me that they're always in their head. That there is certainly a likability that warmth brings. And so I think learning how to balance those two things, standing with your convictions, not waiting for permission, not wobbling, but then also being a person that's warm and enjoyable to be around. Those both can be true. They're not mutually exclusive.
That's right. Okay, let's talk about this last one. And real quickly, what I want to do with this last one is share a story from my 16-year-old who plays competitive golf, talking to his golf teacher. This was a couple of months ago. And, we were just talking about his progress. And I just said, hey, what are some things to help build confidence, right? I'm just noticing on some of the tournaments and some of the things, he's just like anybody on a journey like that, you just sometimes struggle with confidence. And he said something very insightful. He said, Adam, this is a cruel sport in many ways. And the only way I know how to build confidence in the sport is to become very skilled, to become more competent. The better you know how to handle all these various situations, you naturally become more confident when you're out there. And I was like, dude, that is phenomenal advice on so many things besides golf. So I think about this conversation and maybe this last principle that we're talking about on how to stop worrying what people think is just build your confidence through your actions, prove that you're competent, right?
That's right. So it's not about, again, for those of us that struggle with this, where, I would say my kryptonite in life is needing to be liked by others. But learning how to build your confidence through your actions and not just through your likability, that's very different, right? I heard recently that insecurity builds itself on an ego, but confidence really does build itself on evidence. Right. Or I would say arrogance builds itself on an ego. Arrogance is about like me trying to make myself bigger. But confidence really is built on evidence, that there's some evidence here that I have done hard things. I have followed through. I've kept promises to myself. I have acted my way into confidence. Every time I was afraid of something, or at least the last few times I was afraid of something, I was able to build courage for next time. Again, it's kind of like the TSA that the first time you go through it, it's like, oh my goodness, people are yelling at me. I don't know what to do with my shoes. And, I feel so discombobulated. No, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And the less time
analogy.
it takes to get through and the less energy, the less emotional energy it takes to get through. So yeah, I think that's crucial, Adam, is to learn how to build our confidence, not just through our likability, but through our actions.
Yeah, that's really good. That reminds me, last week I was at an airport and this woman was like, hey, what do I do with my cell phone? Am I supposed to put it in my bag, like standing in the TSA line? And so it was fun.
Well, yeah,
it was fun
you
to
just
help
forget.
out the
You're
rookies.
Yeah, this might be the first time you've flown in a long time. And
Yeah.
You're not going to let your cell phone through the metal detector.
No, don't hold on to
Unfortunately.
it. That is a bad move.
You'll get it
to
back.
do that. Yeah, you
That's right.
will. Okay. All right, man. So these are 3 great things that we can do. Again, I think we've teased out the nuance. There is nuance here. You need to care, but not too much. But you need to some of you need to care more than you do now. And some of you need to care a little less than you do now. So call to action, some of them we've talked about as we've gone through here. I love the values tournament, all that kind of stuff, building the confidence through the competence. But one last thought, what would you tell us to do here? Because I think this is, again, it's an important message.
Yeah, I mean, to summarize, I would say know whose opinion actually matters. Make a short list of the people that you really need to pay attention to their opinion. Get clear on what you stand on, number 2. Maybe write down those things that you actually do stand for. Create a final 4. And then build your confidence through action. Maybe when you do something hard, tell somebody about it, right? Not for them to like you, but just to prove to yourself that you're building that confidence through action. Yeah. So I'll leave us with this, that you'll never really lead with confidence if you're stuck worrying about what other people think, right? Mm-hmm. You'll never lead with confidence if you're always worried about what other people think about you. So don't feel like you got to water down your message. Don't feel like you got to be unclear about where it is you think you should head, but learn how to act even when you're afraid, and you can become that kind of warm, likable, but also aligned with your convictions kind of leader.
I love it. All right, Clay, as always, great to be with you.
Thanks, Adam.
Well, that's all we got for today's episode of the How to Lead podcast. You can always reach out to us via email. We can be reached at info@howtolead.work. That's info@howtolead.work. Every episode is mixed and edited by the team over at Sound of a Rose. You can learn more about them at soundofarose.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you again next time.